Inclusion policy discussion.
Oh, go ahead. I'm sorry. I just had a comment about what was on it.
No, go ahead.
So I really loved this. I really liked Portsmouth's resolution. Obviously, doesn't all pertain to us because they have some very lovely and specific things to their city. But I feel like there's so much of this that I would just want to steal and put into a resolution for ourselves. I think it's, I think it's what everybody wants to have, but maybe doesn't always occur. And it would be nice for us to put it out there as this is our resolution affirming that this is what we want for our community.
Any other comments? Yes, Councilor Pope?
I don't have a problem with this, but I know some people might. There was something about refugee status. Does that term sanctuary city comes into play here? Does that make this a sanctuary city if we were to pass something along that line?
We can adopt. I only put this example.
I know. I know that. I'm sorry. I have to ask that question though.
The question
I know
really.
that elephant's gonna.
The question. I listed the questions. Do we want to take a policy position and be a welcoming community? If the answer is yes, then we would work on, at the policy committee level, what that might look like.
Would be, yeah.
And then we would bring it to the council to see, does this look, is this what the council, is this what the council wants? If not, then we can make changes. Councilor Stone.
I was very concerned about the Portsmouth Police Department standard operating procedures that are listed as 1, 2, and then we skip 3, 4, and go to 5. That lays foundation for a sanctuary city, which is a huge topic in itself that I'm not sure anyone wants to entertain at this point.
I mean, I would entertain it, but I'd probably be the only one.
Yep.
So, again.
Oh, you speak for everybody now? Yeah.
I was forwarding to you what Mr. Buckley gave me from NHMA as options for what we might consider. I am not saying that we replicate this and make it Claremont. A lot would have to happen. It has to go through a policy committee with input from people who ever want to say what they want to say, and then we bring it forward to the council and go from there. Councilor Koloski, I guess, first.
I just have one comment, and it to me is a sad state of affairs when we have to actually create a policy to become a welcoming community. It's just not how I was raised individually to not be welcoming, and it bothers me that in society we have to even go to this point.
But this is the direction that, you know, communities are going. The state is going as far as at least they're looking into through the governor's advisory council.
I would have the same comments at the state level. But
if you feel like we're already should be doing this, what's the harm in putting it out there?
There's no harm. I want it to be known that I think it's a really sad state of the world that you have to implement a written policy. Be it the next one, we'll be talking about how we're going to be decent human beings. It's just.
Councilor Pope.
I think this should go to the policy committee. Does a statement like this also become part of our code of conduct eventually? Or may I suggest
it's already part of it.
It can. There might be cross-reference.
I think there's some things of this that are part of the code of conduct already, but maybe not all of it.
So this is a way to address the community's concern on diversity and inclusion, a discussion that's been actively occurring in this community for at least the last year and a half.
I agree.
So I'm bringing it before the council to see what steps you would like to take on this issue. And If you wanted to go to the policy committee, fine. If you're saying you don't want it to be a complete replication of what Portsmouth did, fine. We're not Portsmouth. But it was a starting point. Because what I had asked from NHMA was, do you have any examples of such policies? Do we have to wait for the Governor's Advisory Council to complete its work? The answer was no, we don't have to wait. And in fact, some of our policies probably don't accurately reflect the, I think it's RSA 554, but I could be wrong. Councilor Stone.
I would like to see us wait until the state establishes theirs, and then we can go off that to make sure we're in full compliance when we do it. It seems kind of jumping the ball if they're doing it. One of the other things that plays into this, law changes happens usually, every 2 or 3 years on general, so we'd be constantly updating this policy, unless we have a language in this policy that says we would fall back on both federal and state guidelines.
Yeah, you could have that in there to not have to go through that process.
I just don't see this as a top priority since we have a lot of the policy committee already.
Well, I think, given some of the occurrences that have happened in the community, my personal opinion is we need to take a position. Councilor, who am I? Assistant Mayor Damren.
Yeah. I guess my feeling, and taking into account Councilor Stone's comments as well, there is an awful lot, and we've given quite a bit to the policy committee this evening, and kind of ask them to, if they need to, reorder priorities or do what they need to do to fit things in. But I see no problem with making a motion to take a policy position and be a welcoming community. That's a pretty feel-good statement. Refer it to the policy committee for further work and let them schedule it in as they will with the other priorities that we've already given to them. That now will be their call.
Councilor Pope?
Yeah, I'd like to see the policy committee move forward on this and work on it, at least from our city's point of view, as the governor's thing is going. I mean, we got a lot of elephants in the room and things that have happened in the last year and a half we need to address, and I think this is a good way to start. So,
Councilor Kier?
I would just reiterate as well, I agree with that. I think it's something that is an important priority that we should be, I mean, there are definitely policies, we're working on the policy committee and we have a schedule for it and we know that, but this should definitely be in our docket.
So is...
One more.
Yeah, I'm sorry. Councilor O'Hearn?
I would suggest that we just send it to the policy committee and they can work on it and bring it back to us, what they recommend, and we'll look at it at that time.
Okay. Councilor Koloski?
I have the same feeling. I mean, my statement is just in totality. I do think this is a top priority for this community, given several things that have happened here in the past couple of years, and I do think it would be very important for this seated council to have this policy enacted prior to a new council seated here.
I think we're in agreement.
Okay. Okay, so I guess that answers that question, and, oh, yes, I did send you in my letter to you, I sent you, from Mr. Buckley, I think it was, from NHMA, you may also wish to contact the New Hampshire Commission on Human Rights, as their staff will travel to your community and provide training programs on a variety of subjects oriented towards preventing discrimination. Is that something that the council would like me to further look into?
yes.
Sure.
Yes.
Yeah, why not?
I think it's
All right, then I guess I have the answers that I need to move forward. Okay. Next, committee reports. So policy. We've already talked a lot about what we have been doing with regard to the Board of Assessors. Also on our docket and what we've been currently working on is the food truck